Serious. Ex-prisoners of Reddit. Who was the most evil person there, and what did they do that was so bad? I was 16 but tried as an adult, so they kept me in a 21 and under pod. Malvo, the DC sniper, was in my pod. Also, one of the first people I saw in a chain gang was Charles Manson's brother. Swastika on his forehead and everything. Lessons learned. Don't be a fuckboy. Fuckboy. What did you do related to that got you tried as an adult? Before I got my prison sentence in 2013, I was in Arapahoe County Jail with James Holmes. Was pretty crazy cuz they'd put the whole facility on lockdown to move him, even though he was in segregation. 12 life sentences plus an additional 3,318 years for that guy. Deserves it. There was a guy I was locked up with in Baldwin County, Al, who went into our common area library, really just a bookshelf with about 50-60 books, and ripped out the last chapter of every single book. Edit. Some cartoons I'd read during my time there. That's some chaotic evil shit right there. He sounds like the type of guy to steal the last piece of puzzles too. My friend's dad was a volunteer chaplain, taking care of prisoners' religious needs at the county jail. He came into our criminal justice class to talk about working at a jail. He told us that the most evil people at a jail are the ones that show no remorse for their actions. He saw the guy that killed the foreign exchange student that attended the University of Utah, and he told us that the guy didn't seem to care at all. He was calm about everything. Kid in my history class shot up my school last year, killed 2 and injured 4. I remember when the cops got him, they got footage of him being taken into custody, and a reporter asked him, "What did you do?" He just started laughing maniacally and goes, "I killed a couple kids, so fucked up." Heard a story that some inmates would put broken glass in their faces and throw it at CO's faces, so when they would wipe the stuff away from their eyes, the glass cuts them. Yup, they mix it with urine as well so as to make it a fine mist. Often it will be allowed to ferment for an extended period of time to make it as putrid as possible. It's called gassing, and it's became such a problem in American prisons that they made it a felony. Hands down. So this lady was married, husband cheated, had a full-blown affair, ended up with a love child. Somewhere along the line the wife is babysitting the husband's illegitimate child. He comes home from work, sitting down to eat dinner, and asks her, "How is the baby?" She said, "I don't know, you tell me." This bitch ended up killing the baby, cooking it, putting it in the food, and fed it to him. She's doing 2 life sentences. This is in Arizona, by the way. Side note, she looks like the devil. Her eyes are literally black and she looks like she has no soul. It takes a lot to creep me out, but this lady's vibe is def one of the darkest things I've ever felt in my entire life. Did you meet her, or is there a video story about this? Sounds creepily interesting to see a person like that. I had a cellie in prison who was a KKK white boy. He was a madman. He was always pissed off and would say the craziest stuff like, "Did you hear that? The white rhino is going extinct. Fucking Jews." I was watching the movie about black pilots in World War II and he sat down indignant and rolled his eyes and guffawed. "Black pilots? Come on." I said, "You really think there are no black pilots?" He said, "Hell no. Have you ever seen a black pilot?" It was like this every day until my move finally got approved. "Have you ever seen a black pilot?" I isn't at the point of the movie. When I was in jail, my cellie was a guy that tied his old lady down to their table and tried to carve "Do Not Resuscitate" into her chest. Halfway through the cops showed up because the neighbors could hear her screaming. I tried as politely as I could to tell the captain that I don't mess around with woman beaters and asked for a block transfer. Thankfully they put me in work release, which was awesome because I got to work in the kitchen and deliver food to the different blocks. No food hall meals were brought to you and you never left your block except to go to the basketball CT or the library. Well, one day I'm serving food to one of the solitary cells and as soon as the slot is opened a drenching wet magazine gets thrown out. Turns out it's covered in piss and the woman inside is the chick my previous cellie carved up. Turns out she stabbed her son with a syringe of her blood and she was inside too. Some crazy stories all around, but that couple far and away were the craziest people I saw. Poor son, getting jabbed with a syringe of his mother's blood. I can't even imagine what he put up with growing up. Dudes carving shit into your moms and then your mom injecting you with some blood. Fuck. I was in a women's prison. New inmate told everyone she was in for tax fraud. Couple of days later, she gets the crap beaten out of her and doesn't leave her cell again. Food gets taken in by screws, and eventually she gets ghosted out. Turns out she was in our side and both her husband and son were in the male side for running a child porn ring. Those guys had been put straight in the VP wing, but most female prisons don't have enough sex offenders to have one. It was one of the screws who told some of the inmates why she was in. They wanted her to be taught a lesson. The offenses were awful. She was fully part of it and was responsible for acquiring a lot of the victims. She was trusted by people. Youngest victim was her niece's 3-month-old who had to be hospitalized due to trauma. Sorry to ask, but what's a screw? Prison officer. Was in prison for 27 months. Unfortunately, your child rapists and kiddie porn guys were mixed into Gen Pop, so you would get all kinds like that everywhere. The worst one I heard of was when I was in military prison. Details are foggy because this was 13 years ago, but I remember there being a guy who got 99 years for murder. He had killed a guy, then killed the guy's wife because she was home and would have been a witness, but not before raping her first. The whole facility got locked down every time they moved this guy, because they didn't even want the other inmates to see what he looked like. The other fucked up one was at the same facility. So in the army there's a thing called turtle fucking, where you hit someone's Kevlar helmet with your Kevlar helmet. It makes a loud thonk sound, but doesn't really hurt. People didn't hit super hard, just hard enough to make the noise happen. This guy turtle fucked a girl when she wasn't wearing a Kevlar helmet. She ended up dying while the guy was still awaiting his trial, and he went full on cuckoo bananas. Edit. For everyone asking questions about the logistics of being in prison and also about what I did, here is an AMA I did years ago about this topic. I hope that can answer some of your questions. Can anyone find a video of turtle fucking that isn't actually two turtles fucking? I'm not having much luck on my end. Edit. Never thought this would result in my first Reddit award, but I've been here too long to be surprised. I was in jail, not prison, several times, and most of the inmates were cool. Not saying they didn't deserve to be in jail, but there was genuine camaraderie. The COs. Edit. CO is correctional officer. The guards were the evil ones. They would deny us things like soap to wash with, make us ask 3 times when we were out of toilet paper, that kind of thing. I talked to one of the COs about it and he said they're insecure. He said that as a CO you have to have a certain level of confidence and inner belief in order to tell another grown man what to do. Some of the COs didn't have this and the way it came out was bullying. So yeah, the real evil is in the jailers, not the captives. I also generally think adverse selection applied here. Basically, the type of people who apply here are the type prone to this. Most of the COs from my high school class were guys with failed ambitions to be a cop and a tendency towards abusive authority. I'm not an ex-prisoner, but I've worked in California prison system as a psychologist since 2006. 3 guys, all sex offenders, came to mind. One guy abducted a disabled woman and held her captive for about a week, during which he repeatedly injected her with meth and sodomized her. A friend of the perpetrator eventually helped her escape, and when they searched his property, they discovered fecal matter 9 inches up an axe handle. She nearly died for the internal damage he inflicted and severe dehydration. He was celled up with a guy who repeatedly sexually assaulted a 3-year-old boy, also causing internal damage. He was caught after the boy was hospitalized for internal hemorrhaging and a slew of physical injuries and broken and fractured bones were discovered. He was, of course, also beating the shit out of the boy's mother. That guy was convicted of torture, so at least received a life term. The last guy started raping his bio daughter when she was 8 and got her pregnant at 12. He took her for an abortion. He got her pregnant again when she was 14 and didn't take her in for an abortion until she was almost 6 months along. I guess the late term caught attention at the clinic and resulted in his eventual conviction. They used some of the aborted fetal cells to prove paternity. I don't support the death penalty, but I could be talked into an exception for these 3. They were also so scummy, manipulative, and predatory in prison, just the kind that makes your skin crawl. Aren't you glad you asked? The late term abortion caught the clinic's attention, but a pregnant 12-year-old didn't. I wasn't in prison, but my mom spent 15 years in one. She was at a women's only prison, since it was either that or she got sent to a different state. Where I live we only have 2 prisons that are in practice. My mo told me stories though, so there were a lot of women who killed their babies and stuff, or went crazy and killed their partners. My mom was the beige suits W the public eye of the prison, and not with the people in the ad seg. She told me about some crazy people she talked to though. Most were chill, in on some drug felony like my mom, but then there was this one lady who wouldn't talk to anyone, and baked and ate her 8-month-old. Pretty sick. I used to work the 5 AM shift at a popular gym, and I had a women CEO who worked the night shift who would come in to work out and tan after work. Lord, the stories she told about the crazy ladies. Like one was pregnant and was regularly trying to bid Islam herself into the ground to kill it. She was mentally ill.